Well, Carlton has defeated Essendon in the VFL in a bit of a slog at Windy Hill, a game that was a pretty good high standard in the first quarter, fell away a little bit as conditions deteriorated, and we're going to talk all about the match right now. If you like this channel, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm when you do so. It doesn't cost any money. It only takes a second to do so, and it will ensure you never miss a video. I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button right now. So the Bombers had 10 AFL listed players playing. Carlton had 15, so they had, a bit of an advantage over us, hence the 3-goal win. We played pretty well early, but the Blues got on top and some of the experience showed. But what you really want to know is, how did the AFL listed players go? We had 10 of them, and did any of them show enough to potentially work their way into the team? Well, Elijah Tsatas, not surprisingly, was the best player. He pretty much is always the best player in the VFL. And if it wasn't for the fact that we had so many injuries if it wasn't for the fact that we don't have any injuries in the midfield in the AFL, he would be playing, you'd think. But unfortunately for him, we've got a pretty much stacked midfield. We really don't have any injuries in that position. He had 28 disposals, 2 marks, 5 tackles, 4 clearances, and 14 contested possessions. Vigo Vicentini was probably beaten by Pinate from Carlton, to be perfectly honest, who's obviously an experienced, AFL listed player. But he was still pretty good, Vigo. He had 14 disposals, 4 marks, 2 tackles, 4 clearances, 7 contested possessions, and he had 27 hit-outs. And it continues his good form. He played, most of the game in the ruck, as you would expect, and he will be pushing for a senior berth. Lachlan Blakiston, who was recruited as a ruckman, essentially, 200-centimetre ruckman, but didn't really play in the ruck. He played in the back line. And he did some nice things. I hadn't really had much of a look at him before this. Left footer, and he's sort of a lanky sort of left footer running sort of player when he's playing in the back line, even though he was sort of playing as a key position player. Did a few nice things. 13 disposals, 4 marks, and a tackle. And he looks like he could potentially be a pretty good intercept defender if they can develop him into that sort of player. We'll see what happens. But I was sort of thinking, if Goldstein gets a rest, does Blakiston, come in for him? Or does Vigo come in for him? I think it's probably Vigo at this stage. Otherwise, Blakiston would have been at least trialled in the ruck for at least a quarter or a half. So he looks like he was playing across the back line, trying to trial him to see if he can hold down a potential position, given our shortage of tall players in the back line in the seniors. Oscar Smart kicked a sensational goal in the first quarter, one of the goals of the day, a little dribbling kick. And best I could explain this match from him is that he was busy. He was a busy player. He had 16 disposals, 3 marks, 4 tackles, 3 clearances, 7 contested possessions, and 1 goal won. He pretty much did everything you could ask for a player playing in that sort of small forward position down there. He also got a little bit of the ball around the middle of the ground from what I could see. But he's not just a smart by name, but he's smart by nature. He is a pretty intelligent kind of footballer, runs to the right spots, and I thought he had a pretty good game with his 16 disposals, 2 scoring shots. Reece Unwin was pretty quiet. He's not really setting the world on fire. Nice little left foot nuggety sort of player. I think he will probably stay on the list just because of when he was drafted. They'll give him a couple of years. But he had 8 disposals, 2 marks, and a tackle. Liam McMahon didn't get much of the ball, but he kicked 3 goals. So this is kind of what you can expect from Liam McMahon. Liam McMahon is the kind of player that is efficient, right? He kicks his 3 or 4 goals every single week. When he was playing for Carlton as the captain of their VFL side, every single match bar one, he kicked 3 or 4 goals. And today, he kicked 3 goals. And you can probably see a couple of them in the footage that I've uploaded. He's a nice long kick. He had just the 5 disposals, 3 marks, and a tackle. But he reminds me a little bit, if I could compare him to a player, he reminds me a little bit of Nick Larkey, in that he's kind of tall and lanky and a pretty good kick. He's not sort of a big, broad-shouldered player like Archie May is for us, or, someone like, Tom Hawkins when he was at Geelong. He's a tall, lanky player who's an accurate kick. So, yeah, when I see him, I kind of get Nick Larkey kind of vibes with him. And no doubt, if he was on someone's list other than at least Collingwood, where he started, and Carlton, where he was prior to the mid-season draft, he probably would have played senior football by now. He just knows how to find the scoreboard. So 3 goals straight from him. You've got to be happy with that. Jai Menzie who's a little bit out of favour at the moment and probably not looking like getting back into the senior team, just didn't really do enough. Had 7 disposals, 2 marks, a tackle, no clearances, and just wasn't really involved much in the game. Oscar Smart, I would say at this stage, has gone ahead of him in terms of that sort of small forwardish position, in my view anyway. Archie May. Now, I thought this was really encouraging. He's huge, this guy. He is absolutely massive. And he took a couple of good contested marks from what I could see. He had 13 disposals, 5 marks, 4 tackles, 7 contested possessions, and he had 3 scoring shots. And he could have easily kicked 3 goals. The 2 he missed were very, very kickable. And, you know, he's going to be a monster down there. And that was very, very exciting. He kicked a goal in the third quarter. No, it was the last quarter. He kicked a goal in the last quarter. And he backed himself. When he kicked the point, he had another shot, I think, in the second or third quarter where he backed himself to kick him from 55 metres. And he made the distance. So he's a big, big, long kick. So Archie May, I think, is, you know, certainly in Essendon's long-term plans. I think he'll definitely stay on the list. And, you know, it was good to see him running around doing a few things. Cale Gerreyn. I mentioned last week, Cale Gerreyn played in the back line, even though he was recruited more as a forward. He's kind of like Peter Wright in the sense that he's a forward ruckman. He's built different to Peter Wright. Peter Wright's much lankier. Cale Gerreyn is built much more solid, a bit more like a Jonathan Brown, but he's a bit like Wright in the sense that he's a forward who can ruck a bit, but he's not really a ruckman, even though he can sort of go into the ruck. But he was trialled last week across half-back in a key position role, centre-half-back, I guess you could say he was playing, to see if he can adapt to, you know, given his size, to see if he can adapt to a position in the back line, which would be great for us if he can, given our, you know, amount of injuries in the seniors at the moment. From what I could gather, he played the first half in the back line. He popped up in the third quarter in the forward line. He did take 3 intercept possessions, which is what you want. That's a positive sign for a player who played at least a half in the back line. And I think he played most of the last quarter there as well. It's a bit difficult to tell from the stream, but he definitely played the first half in the back line. He had 7 possessions, 2 marks, a tackle, and 2 clearances, and the 3 intercept possessions. The last player that we had playing of the 10 listed AFL players was Alwyn Davey. And he did kick a nice goal, but didn't really get involved in the match much other than that. I mean, the conditions were kind of, you know, wet and slippery, difficult, you know, I think it was good for contested possession, that, you know, players that, you know, like the in and under. And that's not a criticism of Davey, but that's probably not really his go. He's probably a little bit more of an outside player. But he had the 6 disposals, didn't take a mark, 1 tackle, and just kicked the goal. And we ended up going down in the match by 18 points, 72 to 54. But what we really want to know, the result, we don't really care about the result too much. I don't think most of you do, although some do if you follow the VFL. We just really want to know how the players went. So in my opinion, Elijah Tsatas was the best player. And really, you could make an argument should be playing AFL football. It's not really his fault. It's, you know, who do you knock out of the midfield? He's just, you know, who would you... There's not really anyone obvious who, you know, would come out. It is interesting to note that Dylan Shield didn't play. He was being held over as a potential emergency to come into tonight's match. So I don't know if there's a potential chance that someone could come out of the team. We'll find out. But he was held out of the team. So we just had the 10 listed players in there. So what do you guys think? Did any of you watch the game? I think Elijah is going to be an interesting discussion in the off-season if he continues to play in the reserves, because he's obviously, I think, above reserves level, but just because of the structure of the team, just the way it's composed at the moment in the seniors, he's just finding it hard to work his way in there. So I'd love to see him get in there, because I don't want to see him request a trade, because I think he's going to be a good player for the rest of his career wherever he ends up. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hope you have a good day, everybody. Have a great day. And as always, go Bombers.